Chair's not here as of yet, or I don't know if they're here. There is another attendee on the participant side, so I don't know if things got crossed in terms of which link people took. So hopefully that's what happened. But let's just go ahead and get started. So this is the March 18th, 2021 Public Market Advisory Commission meeting. We will be having a special guest or guests with us talking about the winterization project this evening. That is pretty much the only agenda item. And since currently we do not have quorum, we will have to table the agenda and minutes approval for the next meeting. So we're going to push that back. But it is 5:38 and we are starting, and I will do the roll. So, Helen Chandler, are you present?
I'm here.
You're here. And Lisa, you are also here.
I am here.
And we are missing Holly, we are missing Peter, and we are missing Jeff as well. But, since we are televised, they will be able to see this information later, so it will not be lost on them. And I apologize that they're not here for this great presentation. All right. With that said, the agenda, this is the only agenda item, is the winterization project, and all other items on the agenda, including minutes approval and agenda approval, will have to be tabled for lack of quorum. So, Hillary.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Let me go ahead here. Oh, it looks like I might need you to give me permission to share my screen, Stephanie. Okay. Hi, everyone. I came and presented to PMAC. Gosh, it was last February. Seems like years and years ago. But good to be back here. So I'm Hillary Hands. I'm one of the park planners and landscape architects at the city that kind of manages and oversees the capital projects. So some of the larger projects in the park system, like this winterization study that we did. So as soon as I can get access to share my screen, I have a couple of slides to share with you. Okay. Really today, what was that?
I was just saying I was having a hard time letting you share your screen. You might have to email it to me and then I can share it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's the webinar format. It's a lot more secure in some ways to make it not user friendly.
Oh,
so okay. Can you email me that and I'll pull it up right away.
Yeah, I hope it is not too big to email. Let me see if I can do that here really quick. I apologize, everyone.
Oh no, technical difficulties are, how it happens when we're all virtual. So yeah. Sorry about that. I thought it would allow me to do it, but I guess we haven't tried that.
Yeah, usually as a panelist, I
know. I think it's telling me that it's locked by the admin. It is not something that I'm allowed to use.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So, sorry.
All right, let me see here. I'll just pull it up here really quick.
While Hillary is doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself as well. Please. I'm Josh Landefeld. I'm the Deputy Parks Manager. I oversee Stephanie and her role as the Market Manager. And I'm here to kind of help support Hillary and Stephanie with questions and kind of give a big picture of what's going on as well. So nice to see all of you. Wish we were in person, but I guess this is the best we can do in the moment. So,
yes. Thanks, Josh.
All right, it's currently being added to the email. Okay, I'm sending it over to you, Stephanie, but so while you pull that up, I can just kind of talk about, what we were hoping to cover today. So I know it's been a year since we've spoken to you. And so we were just hoping to provide an overview of kind of where the winterization project left off, kind of the reasons why it was put on hold during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then kind of talk about where our current thoughts are for moving the project forward. So we'll start by just kind of giving an overview of, what was kind of done to date. And so I'll just kind of keep talking here while Stephanie pulls it up because I have it on my screen. So really, what we had done so far was what we called a feasibility study. So that was really looking at, we know there's this desire to improve like winter comfort for vendors and customers. The permanent larger market structure wasn't financially feasible. So we were looking at, would something like these roll down side panels provide something that's financially feasible as an alternative, but also structurally feasible, because we were looking to attach them to the existing market structure. So we hired an architect and engineer to basically provide us with preliminary concept designs of what it could look like, what materials it might be, and provide us with some just like ballpark high level costs to kind of inform, our funding discussions about whether this is something we could move forward with, and also allow us to have enough information to share from a public engagement standpoint. And so the designs, we don't have a visual yet, but as you might recall, what was proposed were these vinyl sidewall panels. It's similar to what is at the Detroit filling station, kind of across the street from the farmers market. You see them on lots of kind of restaurants that expand their outdoor patio space. But basically, it's mostly a clear kind of almost like window shade that you can roll up and roll down. And then there would be anchors embedded into the sidewalk where you could actually attach it. So it's nice because it provides a lot of flexibility for vendors to kind of control access, both kind of behind their tables to refill whatever materials that they're selling. And it provides opportunity to pull it down for certain days and leave it up for others. So that was the concept that was developed to kind of provide, some protection from the wind, kind of retain some heat inside. We also did look at radiant heating as an option. So radiant heating would basically be like installing permanent heaters along the canopy roof. There are some kind of building and energy code restrictions with that. So if you start to enclose a space and then you start to heat it, it can kind of trigger certain code requirements. So in talking to the building department, it sounded like our options were either to just do radiant heating, just do the sidewalls, or if we wanted to look at doing a combination of the both, the only option was really to, sorry, I can keep scrolling. The only option,
sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so here are just some pictures, what I was talking about, nearby, kind of examples of what those vinyl sidewall panels look like. And if you go to the next slide, Stephanie, these were some of the architect's renderings of how the side panels might look. So it wasn't completely enclosed. There would kind of be, always open, egress, access and egress points. But if you go to the next slide, it just kind of shows that this is a flexible system that you could roll up, roll down. You'd have these fasteners that kind of connect to the curb. So just to kind of remind people where we were at, this is kind of the concept level design that was developed. And then, so, talking about radiant heaters that could be installed along the canopy, really, if we wanted to do those in addition to the sidewalls, we would have to have them powered off the grid. So that would be looking at solar power. Getting enough solar infrastructure to support them would significantly expand the project cost, potentially doubling the cost. So, back in February, we were kind of thinking, let's move forward with the side panels, see how they function. And then if we feel like we need additional heating, that could be something we could explore in a subsequent phase. And so if you go to the next slide. So the preliminary cost estimate, it sounds like a lot. So the preliminary, cost estimate for just construction was around $300,000. And you might think, wow, that's a lot of money for these vinyl roll down side panels. A lot of the cost is actually structural upgrades to the existing metal canopy structure, because once you start hanging these panels onto it, you're hitting these wind loads, and you need to make sure that the structure can kind of support that. So, so this is a cost not just for the sidewalls themselves, but structural upgrades to the existing canopy. And then, so kind of where we left off, kind of in 2020 with the process was, we'd kind of done these first steps, which is the feasibility study, develop these preliminary designs and costs. Then we presented the PMAC, and then we started developing kind of our community engagement plan. So our intent was to meet with the vendor stakeholder group, hold some public meetings. But at that point, before we were even able to do those engagement activities, it was kind of put on hold. So when the project is picked up back again, that would be kind of where we would see starting the project again, kind of going through that public engagement standpoint, getting input from all those groups, refining the design based on what we hear back. There might be some tweaks, kind of finalizing funding availability. And then once we do that engagement, the next step is kind of looking at how do we translate these concept designs into construction. So the first step is really having the architect and an engineer develop construction level documents. So those are a lot more detailed. They have, very specific drawings and specifications in order to bid them out to contractors. So that could take a couple months. Then we usually have something out to bid. It usually takes about a month. And then we have a couple months that is just all the contract approval processes. So once we have a contractor selected, we ask the Park Advisory Commission for approval, and then City Council. So just to kind of remind everyone where we left off, we still had those steps ahead of us. And then construction we were anticipating would take somewhere in the 3 to 4 month kind of time frame. Okay, so it looks like this might be an older version of the PowerPoint, so forgive me. But so some of the reasons that the project was put on hold was basically, we were unsure of the trajectory of the pandemic. There were a lot of operational changes that happened, last spring and through the summer, and just kind of figuring out how to keep the market running as it is as an open air market. And there were thoughts about, well, we're not sure how enclosing the market canopy would change, maybe from an operation standpoint, what kind of occupancy limits we might have. So we kind of took this wait and see approach because we thought, from a public health standpoint, it was really in our best interest to maintain that open air market access. So kind of, our current plan is to kind of see how the pandemic kind of plays out through the rest of 2021 with the vaccine rollout, see how that affects, shopping in indoor spaces, how it might affect, how the market operates, and then kind of circle back this coming winter. So kind of next winter of 21-22, and kind of review the project, explore kind of the potential for moving forward, and see if there's any long-lasting design changes. So see if there'll be any kind of impacts in maybe what we were thinking about previously to how we would design it now, knowing what we do about kind of public health and the pandemic. So, we're fortunate the market does have a designated or a dedicated fund balance that can help support, the project financially moving forward. And we here at the City Parks Department are very much looking for a way to improve the winterization of the market. So we just want to make sure whatever we're doing makes sense kind of in our brave new world now. So that's kind of why it's currently in a little bit of a holding pattern. But I hope this helps, just kind of remind everyone of where we are at, kind of the next steps of where we would need to go when it does pick up again, and kind of let you know what we're thinking as far as when we'll kind of relook at this project. So yeah, I think this is an old slide. Sorry, I think I sent you an older one. But anyway, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And, Josh is here as well, our Deputy Parks Manager. So, yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hillary, thank you very much for that great presentation and for reminding us the steps that would need to be taken. And I think the commission totally understood why things needed to be put on hold. We just didn't want the plans to fall off the table. So I have a couple questions in terms of the sort of timeline. And this is thinking about the vendors at the market and how January, February, and March are quite slow times. And I'm wondering if there's any way you can get community input and the redesign, tweaking the design and then developing an implementation plan so that construction could start during the time period when there's fewer vendors at the market, so it would have less impact on the vendors. Because Stephanie, in January, February, and March, it's usually between 20 and 30 vendors at the market. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something we had taken in consideration kind of with our previous plan. I think the intent was, probably like late fall, originally was what we were thinking to start some of the structural repairs. Because with some of the steel upgrades to the market canopy, there would need to be painting of the steel, which is a little temperature dependent. But I think we would be able to do some of those and then maybe through the winter finish up with the attaching the side walls. So yes, we were definitely not looking to do this in peak summer season, but it's a good reminder that there's times that are better for the vendors and market operation, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
And then I guess I'm wondering about, you laid out a general time frame, but can you give us any estimate of sort of specifics, like getting vendor feedback? Because I know right now we're in a little bit slower time for the vendors. I mean, once the planting gets done, they could have time to think about and give comment, whereas if they get hit in the fall, they're going to be really, really busy, the farmers, with the harvest season. So thinking about how maybe it seems like you're at a place where you could start to get vendor input and how that could happen moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely something that we could do and kind of facilitate now. I think some of the reasons for waiting were kind of to see, what would market operations look like next fall, and would that be significantly different than where they are, kind of currently and what we've experienced over the last year. So yes, we could always start, some preliminary conversations now, and then, maybe have additional conversations later in the year once we know a little bit more. So that's something we could look into. But, I think for us, it was really just kind of giving it some more time so that we can kind of see, what things are looking like later in the year.
Yeah, and I'll interject on that as well. I mean, obviously, when we started this conversation a year ago or prior to a year ago, when we got to this point a year ago, market operations were relatively consistent for a number of years. And so it was easy for us to kind of reach out to vendors and say, what do you want? How do you want to do it? And that's now, with everything being different, and part of Stephanie's goal and our goal for this year is to getting back to as normal as possible with operations, or whatever our new normal is. And so what we want to get from vendors, and it will be an ongoing process, is within this new world, how do you see these walls being, and what feedback do you have based on your understanding of what operations are today and even these next few months, and how this winterization will impact it. And I think that's something we will take into consideration throughout this process.
Does anyone else have any other feedback, any other panelists? Jeff, did you want to chime in, or Helen? And Jeff has joined us, by the way.
I couldn't get my Zoom to work.
Okay.
So I'm still working on it on my other phone while I'm listening in. So just to recap, to make sure I caught all of it, it sounds like the sidewalls could work, and that's something we could move forward with, but the heaters are not anything we can move forward with at this time. Is that correct?
So we kind of reviewed the process that we've gone through so far, which was really a feasibility study. We could do, as far as meeting building code requirements and energy code requirements, the sidewalls or heaters could either be done kind of independently. Doing them both together causes some issues in needing to like solar power them that really increases the project cost. So what we found so far is that yes, like the side rolled down side panels are kind of financially feasible. There's some structural improvements that would need to be made, but that is something that could happen. What we've kind of discussed so far is that we've kind of pressed pause to kind of see how the pandemic affects operations for kind of this season, kind of going through 2021. And our intent was to kind of revisit the project next winter to kind of see what things might have hopefully gone back to normal, what changes might be more permanent, because there could be some implications to having even kind of like a temporary enclosure of the market and how that could affect occupancy limits and operations, and even could affect honestly like members of the public, how comfortable they feel going into a space that's a little more enclosed as well. So that's kind of where we're at currently.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, and again, I think that as we were a year ago, I think side panels seem to be the decision that made the most sense. And that's kind of where we were moving forward to at this point. I think that we do want to look at radiant heat again as we know what is coming. We learn more about what is going to be the future. It may make more sense to try to heat open air space versus enclosed space, but those are some of the things we want to kind of find out as we move through this.
Yeah, so I think we can kind of, discuss those two options further once we know a little bit more kind of going forward, what next winter looks like and what we can hopefully start to expect for kind of future seasons.
Okay, so potentially it's something that we could move forward on this fall is what it is a possibility, depending on how this year goes, correct?
So actually, no, we're not currently moving forward with construction for this fall. So what we're talking about is kind of revisiting the project, and we talked about kind of the next phases. So what we've done so far was develop kind of preliminary concept level designs and preliminary cost estimates. And the next step in the project was kind of going to do public engagement. So, meeting with the market vendors, hosting some public meetings to kind of provide opportunities for input. Once we have all that input, it might, we might revise the designs based on what we heard. And then once we're kind of comfortable with that, the next steps would be having the architect and engineer take the designs and finalize them into construction documents that can then be bid out in order to hire contractors. So kind of once the project picks up again, once we kind of feel comfortable with the design moving forward, then those probably still be, I would imagine, like a 6-month process of public engagement, construction documents, bidding, contract approval, until construction would really start. Lisa did mention earlier, thinking about the best time of year to do construction. I think we'd always thought that kind of a late fall start would make sense, both with kind of requirements for what we would need temperature wise to do some of the work, but also hopefully not impacting the market, in kind of the prime summer months. So I would kind of foresee it as, let's revisit the project kind of next winter, kind of see if there's any changes that might need to be made, and then kind of begin that process. And so probably the earliest construction would happen would be fall of 2022. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as like a construction timeline.
Do any other panelists have any other questions? Otherwise, I will go to the phones and see if anyone has anything to share. Helen, did you want to chime in?
I feel like Lisa and Jeff covered my questions. Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering why community input, especially from the vendors, couldn't happen earlier. I understand that meeting in big groups is not feasible, but there's lots of ways that you could get vendor input without meeting in a large group and even public input. So, we all have been living in the pandemic for a year and we've got lots of ways of communicating. So could we start this process of getting community input before winter 2022?
I can make a comment on that. I mean, it's not a matter of the meeting and the groups. I think it's where the city's concerned about is understanding the ramifications of the pandemic and coming out of it to operations of the market. So I agree with you. I think we can find some ways to have communication, get feedback from the vendors, even from the community as we go through this year. And we can challenge Stephanie to find the right ways and Hillary and I to find the right questions to ask at that point. But what our concern is and where we're looking at it as is, we're not sure what operations are going to look like in a few months, in 6 months. And that's what we're looking, that's the hold on moving the process forward, because if we gather information today and operations or the world stays in a way that it is today, that information isn't quite the same as what it would be in 6 months. I think I hear what you're saying, and we can definitely find some ways to get community feedback, both from vendors and consumers, but understanding that there is a wait to see to some extent how we move forward with enclosing spaces or bringing people to group. That's the bigger concern that we're looking at that point.
So and what metrics are you using to monitor operations? Is it the number of vendors? Is it the number of people coming to the market? Is it total sales? What will be your sort of steps to figuring out how we're back to a place where what I'm hearing you say, where the city would like to invest in the structure of the market?
I think that all of those come to play. I don't know that there's a single metric that is going to identify it as this is there. Obviously we are still coming, we look at the last 3 weeks based in Michigan, the numbers are not where we want them to be going this way. It's not a matter of not wanting to invest, but it's the idea of investing into something that in a year is not really what is the right component moving forward. And I think that's an answer that we don't have today. And it's one that I think that we're trying to just get some operations, get some experience in the market as we've come into the vaccine to see how can we move forward with this project. And I think that's probably the bigger side of it than a number of cases or percentage of vaccines. It's how is the operation really working as we move forward with that.
All right, so I guess as a commissioner, I'd just love regular inputs on regular feedback on how those things are being monitored. We have these monthly meetings, so just thinking about those, how we'll monitor that going forward.
Okay.
Welcome, Peter. I see that you have joined us. I don't know if you saw any or heard any of the presentation, but we're just talking about any questions, comments about the winterization project. Any other feedback from panelists? Otherwise, I will go to the phone and see if anyone would like to share. All right. Hello, Carlene. Do you want to share any feedback with us? You don't have to, but just wanted to let you know you can. All right, I'm going to take that as a no. All right. Hello, would you like to give any feedback about the winterization project? It is optional. I'll take that as a no. All right. So does anyone else have any other feedback, questions, comments for Hillary or Josh about the winterization project?
The one thing, I mean, the last thing that I will add is, I mean, the market is definitely, and Hillary mentioned it. I mean, the fact that the market has some dedicated funds for projects like this puts it in a much better position than any other facilities. I mean, so that as we all know, COVID has impacted finances for a lot of different places and different things like that. That has not impacted the decision to do this in regards to the monies that's set aside for it. You don't have to wait in line compared to somebody else, some other facility. So, I mean, you're in a really good place that if we do see changes in a period, if we get feedback, or there's opportunities to move this forward and sooner than what Hillary talked about, I've talked about, we have the ability to do that. And the department fully supports moving forward with something that is the right project at the right time. And so I don't want anyone to walk away from this saying the city's not looking to do it or the department doesn't want to support it. We are looking to do it, and we look forward to working together as we move forward with it.
Thanks, Josh and Hillary. I really appreciate that. I just as you can keep us informed going forward as to how you're making those decisions. That's sort of where my questions were leading towards.
Understandable.
Thanks.
Great. So if there's no other questions, we do have a quorum now. So if we wanted to work in reverse and get our minutes and agenda approved. Otherwise, Josh and Hillary, you can stick around if you want to, but don't feel obligated. And I appreciate your coming and helping. I think that was valuable to everybody. So thanks again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and take care.
Thank you.
Bye. So, Peter, take it away.
Hi there. So sorry I'm late, but I've had a scheduling issue. But that one question too is that this is posted online, so I can watch. I'll reverse in time. I'll do that.
Yes.
All right. So it sounds like you skipped forward into the presentations.
We did. We skipped agenda approval, skipped minutes approval because we didn't have quorum. So
all right. Well,
now we do. So
good. Excellent. Well, let's work on item C, approval agenda. That hopefully you have all received the agenda and gone through most of it already. A move to approve it. Is there a second?
Is there any way we can put in there? Can we talk today? Get an update. I'm getting a ton of questions about people are concerned about where we're at as far as this season coming up, for where we're at for spaces in between stalls, update on all that. I'm not sure if that's going to be covered in there, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
So we could do that in item H, which is new business, which is non-agenda items.
Okay.
So how about we'll defer to that, but
that'll work.
Okay.
That'll work.
So for approving at least this current agenda, is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right. You already did the public commentary, I assume. The approval of the previous minutes, item E. Everyone hopefully has the previous minutes that were sent out. Any changes or modifications people have? Is there a move to accept those?
I move to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Great, it all passes. So we'll skip, we've done the presentation, so we'll come now to new business. So Jeff, you were requesting some information.
So I have a lot of people, they come and they talk to me about it because I'm the annual representative. They're concerned about what's going to happen this summer as far as spaces in between our stalls, just an update on where we're at with all that. because there's a lot of people who have 3 and 4 stalls and they're concerned about being able to use their stalls this summer.
Yes, so I didn't put it in there because no news is good news. There is no real changes. We aren't going to try to reduce the number of stalls, but we certainly are going to continue the spacing. Otherwise, everything is continuing as is, in terms of mask requirements, you know, hand sanitization, nobody coming into the office, no one coming into the bathrooms, like pretty much everything's the same. The only change is going to be we're going to do our best to make sure everybody gets the full amount of stalls they have. Otherwise, same as last year.
So Stephanie, I'm wondering about the same sort of questions I was asking before is, you know, vaccines are rolling out. We're hoping all for a better place in a few months. So with the city, are you developing, again, some benchmarks on how to make decisions going forward? You know, is there, you know, having the infection rate be below 2% or something like that? And I know this might be early to make those decisions, but again, just thinking about what are those benchmarks that might have implications of the changes in the way the space is organized or things like that at the market. And then a related question is the Michigan, that organization that helped put out guidelines initially for the farmers market, is it MIFMA? That have they been also having those conversations so you're not having to make those decisions in a vacuum?
Yes, of course. I mean, we follow all guidelines from the Michigan Farmers Market Association, and pretty much they're recommending not changing anything. And yes, I think it's far too early to say. I think there's a lot of positivity around the high rates of vaccination, but we can't forget that the case rate is still quite high. So, you know, the only thing that we might be looking towards doing is seeing if there's some events we can bring back. Otherwise, you know, masks I anticipate are going to be required throughout the season. The distancing, same thing. We're not anticipating changing any of that stuff unless there's a drastic improvement, but I doubt it. And yes, so the city is also very, very closely in contact with the state Department of Health and Human Services. So we're following every guideline as well as the Washtenaw County Health Department. So yes, we don't have any specific benchmarks, but we're just following all the indications that were being given by the local and state agencies.
Great. Is there any other new business that people have, or any other questions, comments you have while we've got everyone together?
I guess just on that same line of thinking about, you know, the protocols staying the same. I'm sorry, but I feel so out of it. But is there going to be room for everybody if we like still do the spacing? And are you thinking about that? Because I bet like there was people that didn't come to market last year that are going to want to come back, or is that a thing? Or maybe like there wasn't like a drastic decrease in vendor attendance last year, and I don't know.
Yeah, it really wasn't that much. We had maybe like 3 people that didn't come back at all throughout the season. And yeah, no, we're not worried about it at all. And if so, we'll have to expand onto the sidewalk, and that's stuff that we've done years past. So no, we still have plenty of space and we're not worrying about that. And that's why, you know, we're trying to make sure that people don't have any reductions in stalls. Because, you know, as things progress, that seemed to sort of not really be a big problem anyways, at least, you know, later on. In the beginning, it was something that we were very strict about, but we're able to be flexible later on. So yeah, no, we're not going to turn anyone away. We're not worried. We're not, you know, that's our number one priority, is making sure everyone feels comfortable and is able to have their regular place of business. So yes, don't worry about that. We'll find them. We'll put them somewhere. If we have to create another row in the parking lot, we will do it. So yeah, no one will be turned away.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. And Stephanie, I just wanted to ask if you're still getting help from city parks and what's happening with the online ordering, because I'm just kind of interested in people picking up. Do you still have a fair amount of people doing drive up and having online ordered and then picking up?
It's really not that popular right now. And partly that's just because we are in the winter time. It's slower in general. We have maybe 2 to 3 per week still. However, as we move into seedlings time, we're anticipating that that's going to go back up. I know Frog Holler did a really large business last year in terms of the drive up online ordering. So we're gearing up for that. The assistant manager, Becky, she just came back from her 2 months off as a temporary employee. I think, yeah, last Saturday was their first market back. And one of our helpers from Parks is back again, Connor has returned as well. So we will have at least one additional person from Parks. They're going to be taking the place of our usual market assistant, which we didn't have officially last year. But beyond that, I think we're going to have a solid crew of 3 this time, now that we've got all the procedures dialed in. So yeah, we're looking forward to another great season.
All right, any other comments or other new items for people have? All right, and the second public comment you already did, or that's what I heard there?
Yeah, we tried. No one took us up on it. So.
There was an issue too that came up. Someone mentioned that there was an async between the phone version and the video version. So I don't know how that's been, how to resolve that, but it's something.
Yeah, we waited a little extra. But.
Okay. All right. Well, then moving on to item L, adjournment. Let's adjourn it at 6:20 p.m. Thank you all. So.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
Thank
Thanks
you.
Thanks for that presentation. It was great to get an update.
Hopefully it was